Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel and thank you for clicking on the video. Today we're talking about Nyx and her newest rework. It wasn't as substantial as some of the reworks in the past, such as Caliban or Wukong's. This one is more of a pinch of salt type of rework, just some quality of life changes and some overall improvements to her abilities, namely her passive and incorporating radiation into most of her skills, which I think are excellent changes. There are some issues I have with some of the changes, but overall, I think it's another great rework by Pablo and the team over in DE. So we'll talk about that. I'll showcase the build and why you should start playing Nyx moving forward. Let's get started. Let's quickly talk about Nyx and her abilities that got changed, namely Psychic Bolts. This is the ability that I have somewhat of a problem with. The first part is great. When you kill an enemy, 2 more bolts will fly out and strip more armor on other enemies. This is an escalating effect. You can keep recasting, and it's just more chain CC. Excellent change. No issue there. The second part, I have a problem with. Nyx will earn a fixed amount of defenses, which is armor in this case, when she removes armor with Psychic Bolt. So she'll strip that armor, including Overguard. That part's good for a duration, and that duration of the armor you gain is scaled with your ability strength as well as the value. So at around 110, you have like 1,000 armor. And here's my problem. Why does Nyx need 1,000 armor? She CCs with her first, second, third, and fourth skill. And her fourth skill, she's completely immune. She's not going to take any damage. 1,000 armor does nothing for that. The other 3 abilities, the first one, they're shooting the mind control enemy, not you. The second ability, they have rad procs now, which is a great change, and we'll touch on that in a moment. They have rad procs now, so they're again shooting themselves, and then you have chaos, and they're blinded and CC'd. Never does Nyx really benefit from 1,000 armor whatsoever. That's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that she already has very low HP, so incorporating a whole lot of armor does nothing for that because you're getting diminishing returns for that amount of armor. That does nothing for her, and you don't want to build survivability because she doesn't need it. Again, we circle back to problem 1. She already has a ton of CC potential, so where is she really benefiting from this armor? She can mind control pretty much any enemy in the game. She can mind control acolytes. She can armor strip acolytes. So if you're worried about, well, what if I get killed by that? Don't. You can blow them up pretty easily. And number 2, in your fourth ability, like I said, you take no damage. So I don't know why you would want a whole lot of armor when you can't really benefit from it. And then not to mention whatever companion you're running, there's really no opportunity for the enemies to ever hit you as long as you're not just standing still, which you are never standing still in this game. You're always moving around and bullet jumping. So the enemies are never going to actually hit you enough for that 1,000 armor to matter at all. And you know, number 3, we have shield gating. So you can incorporate maybe a shield mod or a shield arcane and just shield gate with rolling guard. Problem solved. I think they should change this and maybe incorporate movement speed or increase to weapon damage because armor is just totally useless on her. I do like the idea of you're able to actually strip the overguard off of an enemy and put it onto yourself. So that's another form of shield gate. So you've got overguard gate and shield gate, and you're invulnerable with your 4. Like, I'm just saying that thing would, the 1,000 armor is pointless, but I don't want to make the whole video about that. It's a small critique, but overall, I think this rework is really, really good. Chaos applies radiation stacks in an AoE. So like I said, all the enemies are chain CC. You can see in the background of the clip how much the enemies are, they can't touch you. Now, obviously Nyx is not a high KPM Warframe. She would really excel in missions for defense and interception and things like that, but she's not really meant for survival. But I did take her into a survival against enemies that are resistant to radiation just to show you how strong it is. Again, I didn't really come close to dying at all. The rad changes are great. I just think the armor is a little redundant and doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The other thing I want to talk about is her brand new passive. Anytime there's 5 or more confused enemies, or enemies affected by range or her third skill, whatever, anything affected by her abilities, within her affinity range, she gains 200% plus critical chance on primary and secondary weapons. Now, I'm not sure why they didn't extend this to melees. Maybe they saw something scary with the glaive, hint, hint. But this is going to make pretty much anybody's favorite weapon work really well on Nyx. And overall, it's just another great passive change. In the past, there were so many horrible passives, but Nyx didn't have exactly a terrible one, but this one is a much better one than she had before. Mind Control. This is an interesting one. This ability is actually not bad anymore. The enemy turret that you make actually does a lot of damage, especially when you incorporate the Mind Control augment. You can pump that enemy's damage up like crazy. The only problem you'll run into, and if you've seen Darth Muffin's video talking about this, there are some issues where if there's too many enemies, the Mind Control enemy doesn't know what to do, and he'll kind of just stand there and not do anything. So that's kind of a problem. You also don't want to have the enemy lose their weapon, because if they're running around meleeing, that's severely lowering their damage output. But overall, I would say it's pretty good. I think they could work on the enemy AI just a little bit more so that it actually targets and shoots the enemies, because there are times where I can watch the enemy and they just kind of stop doing anything and just sit there and let their huge damage percent increase duration just decrease to 0, and then nothing really happened. But they definitely increase the damage. I think this is actually a pretty good subsume ability now. There's probably some shenanigans other people are starting to figure out, and I'll definitely be exploring what kind of frames could take advantage of this. But Mind Control, pretty good ability now. I wouldn't subsume it off right away anymore. It actually does pretty good work. Lastly, I do want to talk about Absorb real quick. Now, I actually ended up taking this ability off for Breach Surge, but I thought it was important to talk about the changes because Absorb has always been kind of a type ability. It's got like a cool little, augment, but it's also not super good, but this and that. So anyway, Absorb is now duration based. So you're in it for a certain amount of time, and depending on how much damage you take and how much you deal out will indicate, how much invulnerability you'll have when you get out of it. Now, I tested the damage. I really don't think they touched it too much. I think the damage is roughly the same. So if you were to use Absorb, you definitely need to use the augment for it so that you can still, use your weapons. Now, I will say you definitely move faster when you're using the augment than before. Before it was like a snail's pace. Now you're just like kind of casually walking. Actually, not too bad. So if you like using Absorb and you like, doing the Kalervo subsume tech with Absorb, go for that again. It's still good. But overall, I took off Absorb in favor of Breach Surge because Breach Surge was enabling the chaos to allow that Breach Surge to spread very easily without me even having to shoot the enemies. The Breach Surge will kind of fan out and just hit random enemies, allowing you to worry less about, hitting every single enemy and just making sure you get at least one kill and make sure you apply your radiation. Because when the enemies are killing each other, the Breach Surge is going off and doing tons of damage, blinding, setting up more rad, doing this and that. I think it's actually a really good subsume on Nyx, and I encourage you to use that at least over Absorb. And the great thing about Breach Surge is when it's in the 4th slot, you have access to Precision Intensify, which is a excellent mod in order to buff your Breach Surge damage. So on that note, let's talk about the build. Now, throughout that gameplay, I only had one Archon shard equipped, and it just puts me over 10% extra strength because we are actually using corrosive projection. The armor strip value is at 88% here with my current strength value, but with corrosive projection, it gives me an additional 18%. So that puts me a little over 100% strip. I don't think she really needs a whole lot of strength. Now, the only ability that I think really benefits from the strength is if you're using Mind Control's augment and you want to do like a unique, cool build with it. I encourage you to try it. It's just not for me. If you want to use it in a specific tile set, or I should say game mode, then by all means, but I definitely wouldn't use it if you're trying to survive in a survival, because the survival percentage is just going to drop rapidly because you're not going to kill enough. So I would highly recommend incorporating Breach Surge and just using Precision Intensify. This will allow you to give yourself a huge 4x multiplier without having to expend a whole lot of Archon shards for extra strength or mod space or mod value. Really, we just want to go with a bunch of range and decent amount of duration. So that's why we have Cunning Drift over Prime Sure-Footed, because we're actually using Constitution. Hey, look who's on the mod. It's Nyx. So anyway, we're not using Prime Sure-Footed, we're using Cunning Drift to maximize our range. We have Augur Reach, which is giving us a little bit of our shields back when we utilize our abilities, which is pretty much all the time. We are also using Fast Deflection. This is going to help us keep up our shield gate. So you're not going to be taking a whole lot of damage, but when you do, you can roll, get your shield back up, get that armor. I know I said I didn't like it too much, but when you're in the steel path, you will see a lot of overguard type enemies, so you can constantly flash your pacifying bolts and get your armor back up that way. We also have stretch, a good amount of energy as well, because she is kind of spam heavy. Now this is a brand new arcane, and I do need to mention that the arcanes and the skin you saw me wearing on Nyx, that was all provided to me by DE. They actually gave me quite a few items that were a part of this update, and I will disclose that in future videos as well, just to be upfront and honest. This is an arcane I was sort of testing. This does work with Nyx. So when you have it actually max skilled, anytime you inflict unique status types, so in this case radiation, with your abilities, you will give yourself extra ability strength and efficiency. Kind of an interesting mod. It's going to require some more testing, but throughout that gameplay, I had an unranked version equipped on. I also had Arcane Energized, but I mean, if you want to incorporate more strength and get rid of corrosive projection, maybe you want to use like growing power or something, you have something else in mind, go for it. But this is just like the build that I was going for. We are running one single augment, and that is Pacifying Bolts. This is going to allow you to throw 3 extra bolts. Now keep in mind, when those bolts hit an enemy and you kill them, they will send out an additional 2. So you are increasing your armor strip value by a lot when you have extra bolts being thrown out to extra enemies. These also guarantee radiation procs, which is really, really good. You'll pretty much have 100% uptime on radiation with every single skill here, including Breach Surge. So really, really good. A lot of CC here. And yeah, this is the build that I've been running. And that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I really like this Nyx rework. I think it's pretty good, and I plan on covering Trinity's next. That'll probably be my next video. So if you do want to see that, be sure to subscribe. If you're not, leave a like on this video if you did like it, and let me know what you think about the Nyx rework or the Warframe 99 update as a whole. I will see you in the next video. Peace out.